What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. All right, so we're going to revisit this shard degree discussion that I talked about yesterday. And the reason is I had a lot of interesting comments. I had people, anywhere from this card is the absolute garbage, you shouldn't run it at all on anything, to, oh my goodness, you can't use it in macro, you absolute noob, you're horrible. And that's perfectly fine. I don't block people because, I disagree with them or they disagree with me. I mean, I block people because they're either disrespectful or they just post something idiotic. And I mean, from my standpoint, ignorance is excusable, stupidity a little less, and people don't realize I'm always up for a good debate. Don't think that just because you disagree with me, I'm going to hate you or something like that. All right, we're going to start on the whole macro thing because despite the fact that it was a 7-minute video and I spoke of macro for probably less than 50 seconds, people seem to have OCD and they seem to have just honed in on that one aspect. Now, people don't seem to realize that never once in the video did I say that you can actually resolve shard degree while macrocosmos is face up and active. Like, I've actually read the card, so don't tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about, because I do. The important thing that you need to remember is I actually still believe that this is a very good card in macro. You're not going to have macro cosmos active always. It's not like the deck is comprised of 36 macros, 3 copies of DD Survivor and 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army. That's just not how the deck is built. Well, that's a weak argument, Capital G. Why don't you run a Fat Veiler or Max C and Pot of Avarice? Well, see, there's 2 reasons why I think that Shard of Greed works in macro and why those cards don't. Number 1, Dimensional Fissure is a card, and a lot of times it acts almost identical to Macrocosmos in this one specific deck as far as facilitating your win condition. The difference is, while those 3 cards completely conflict with Dimensional Fissure, Shard of Greed does not conflict with Dimensional Fissure at all. Number 2, even if you resolve those cards, outside of Pot of Avarice, which would probably never be live, the card does not facilitate your win condition. If you have a Max C or an Effect Veiler, those cards are so reactive. They don't help you win. They just make it so maybe you don't lose, possibly. I'd rather have a card that gives me more resources, that lets me draw for the combo pieces and the important cards that I need, rather than maybe just stopping one of my opponent's plays. Let's talk about the Fissure element of Macrocosmos. Like, people seem to forget, Dimensional Fissure basically acts identical in macro as Macrocosmos does from almost every aspect. It lets you reuse your DD Survivor and your DD Scout planes. Not just that, but even if you're using it to hurt your opponent, whether you're playing something like Mermill Atlantean, Dark World, any type of Monarch variant, you're pretty much getting the same effect outside of, certain situations like, or you're playing against something like Insector. So, people didn't take into consideration at all that Dimensional Fissure is a card, and it's played in Macrocosmos generally at 2. So, maybe of the 5 copies combined of macro and Fissure that you're using, maybe you open with Fissure instead of macro. Maybe your macro gets MST'd and then you have Shard of Greed. People don't seem to understand that, yeah, macro is the heart and soul of the deck, but Dimensional Fissure pretty much acts the same. And we're going to transition to card conflictions. This is something that people don't understand, and this is why the card can work. Everybody says, oh, well, you can't use it while macros face up. Yeah, I understand that. But if you're not going to run a card just because it conflicts with one card in your deck, then why did Josh Graham run Thunder King Ryo in windups? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't resolve Sangan while Ryo's face up. You can't resolve Toy Factory while Ryo is face up. So why did Josh Graham, who won a YCS, why are lots of wind-up players playing Thunder King Ryo in a deck like windups where Toy Factory basically, tutors everything in the entire deck for them? Sangan does the same exact thing. Why did Jarrell Winston play Doom Caliber Knight and Chaos Dragons, despite the fact that the deck has a very low spell count, the deck runs absolutely no traps, so it's a deck where you pretty much live and die off monster effects? And while he has Doom Caliber face up, not only can he not use any type of monster effect, so he can't do any more additional damage, but people don't even realize there are certain spells in the deck you can't actually use, because let's say you activate a charge of the Light Brigade, or you activate a Solar Recharge. Do you know what would happen if Jarrell did that and he happened to mill a Equips Wyvern? His Doom Caliber would die. So, but why did he play it? Because it's simple. You can play cards that conflict with each other as long as you're not an idiot. People have been playing Doom Calibers and Thunder King Ryos in gadgets despite the fact that, you can't play the cards at the same time. It's just play smart and it'll work. Just because you have macro face up doesn't mean you're immediately going to play Shard of Greed. I mean, let the Shard of Greed sit in your hand for a turn. If your macro is face up, chances are you're in a very good position. You should be winning. You know what I mean? Because you should have a DD scout plan or a survivor that's putting in a majority of the work. Another thing that I want to talk about is the card comparisons. And I actually saw a lot of these. People were saying, oh, well, it's super slow. It doesn't do... I mean, yeah, I understand it's slow and it doesn't provide any immediate advantage, but... I mean, 2 turns? God, guys, we used to play Gold Sarcophagus. We used to wait 2 turns and have your opponent know exactly what you were getting, have 2 turns to defend against that card just to get 1 card. I mean, after 2 turns, Shard of Greed is a +1. I'm not saying that it should be ran in everything. It has to be ran in a deck that can sustain itself. You know what I mean? Like, TG is a deck where, again, you can pretty much draw anything in TG and kind of make it work because that's how the deck is structured. All the monsters float. You have lockdown cards like Skill Drain. And the deck plays so much defense, it's very hard to get a clean shot at it with all the deep prisons and bottomlesses. So that's an ideal deck. TG is not a deck where you need any type of fast plays. And it's a deck that it doesn't really matter what your opponent's playing. It will slow the pace of the game down to where it wants to play the game. Those type of decks are where Shard of Greed are going to work. You know what I mean? I understand that cards like Pot of Duality and Reckless Greed offer a more instant, beneficial gain, but, none of those cards net you any type of advantage, and they both have drawbacks also. Shard of Greed, when you resolve that, you're getting +2. You're getting the effect of Pot of Greed. So I'm not saying that this card is staple, but, I am seeing that this card maybe at 2 in a couple of decks could work. You know what I mean? Especially if you're drawing into stuff like removal. I mean, if you're playing Watts and you've already got like a level limit area B plus a messenger piece on the field, you play that Shard of Greed and then you draw into 2 more protection spell or 2 more protection, stall cards, like in case you happen to get heavy stormed or you happen to get MST'd or something like that. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any more counters to my counters, then let me know. Maybe you have a counter or something like that. Talk to you guys later.